Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. All right. So today it's my genuine honor to welcome Joe Delagrave, a wheelchair rugby legend, to the show. Joe's a Wisconsin boy, born in Racine and raised in Prairie du Chien. With his 6'6" frame, he was a multi-sport athlete growing up, and he played football at Winona State, and after a boating accident, had to recalibrate his athletic life. He found the sport of quad rugby a few years later, and the rest is history. He's attended 3 world championships and 1 Paralympic Games, London, where the team brought home a bronze medal. And after missing the Rio team, he doubled down on his career, made the Tokyo team, and is also named co-captain. Married with 3 children, he's going to give us a lesson in resilience today, I promise you. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Man, thank you. Thank you. That hypes me up. That was awesome. Really appreciate it, Clayton.
I didn't even scratch the surface, man. I was just getting started. I gotta keep it kind of tight.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I was just gonna say, it's like, I need that with 1 day to go before our first game, and if I were me, let's go.
I will do one for you if you want. And
let's do it.
To you.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, cool. So I'd love to start with this question, which is, when you hear the title of our show, Sports Saved My Life, what comes to mind for you personally?
Truth. It's sports is so much greater than the game, the scoreboard, the wins and losses. It's at its basic foundation. It's a life changer. And adaptive sports in particular, I think, has that extra special component to it.
I totally agree. So paint me a picture of where you would be without sport in your life, in particular rugby.
I don't know, just pick a Picasso painting, I guess. I couldn't paint a picture without sports. It has always been my passion. It has always been something that I've been drawn to, able-bodied or disabled. And I can't imagine a life without it. And even with my kids now, it's just I love watching them play too. I cannot imagine. Maybe it'd just be a blank canvas. I have no idea. Maybe a miserable old man in a hut somewhere. Who knows? There you go. Yeah.
I always, whenever I say it, I think somebody's going to say I used to be the guy on the side of the road or something, I'm just a bum without.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Give me a description of who you are in one sentence.
Who I am in one sentence. I'm a husband, a father, a keynote speaker, and a wheelchair rugby player. That's it.
It's right off your website, man. It's you
Boom. I've got the branding thing down. I would say I'm a man of faith too. I got to add that in there probably before the husband part too. But yeah.
I don't know, man. I think you got to stick with the husband part, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly. My anniversary is tomorrow too. So
is it really? How many years?
It'll be 14. 14 is a good number for me too. 14. Yeah.
Congrats on that. That's exciting. That's very exciting.
Super exciting.
I'm going to be 20 this year. So,
Yeah.
I gotta go ahead of you.
Yeah, you are.
All right. So let's talk about childhood. Give me whatever comes to mind. Where'd you grow up? What was childhood like? What kind of kid were you? You were very athletic. I'm thinking, looks like it if you got to play collegiate football. So paint me that picture of childhood.
Yeah, childhood was sports. And then when it wasn't sports, it was playing with friends. I like to joke I'm a recovering people pleaser, and like I just loved being around. I've always loved being around people. I'm super extroverted. Like Enneagram 3, write down the thing if whoever like follows that. I don't really get those whole things, but that's what people tell me. But sports was where I found a lot of like safe place. So I grew up in a home that was loving, not a lot of money, and my dad, my biological father, was not in the picture.
Okay.
And so I think where
were you raised by a single mom then, or
single mom for a while, and then my stepdad's been in my life since I was 5. They were married in 1990, but and I love him to death for what he's been able to do for me. Yeah. But I think a part of me, especially because so like my stepdad's white, my mom's white, my dad was black, and I dealt with a lot of. I'm a mixed dude in a wheelchair. I check a lot of boxes, man. I'm a mixed dude in a wheelchair.
You
boom,
do.
Boom. Come on now, DEI baby, and I think like where sports was led was that missing piece of my biological father and really wanting that connection, but I could kind of get some of that from coaches.
Yeah, sure.
And that affirmation piece, and that's something that I really gravitated towards.
When you say he wasn't in the picture, was he like didn't even come to check games, or he was like?
I didn't see him from when I was 5 years old till when I was 20 years old. And
really
in and out of prison, made some bad choices in his lifetime, and didn't see him from when I was 5 all the way through 20 years old. A lot of broken promises. Were
there like letters going back? But
phone calls. I talked to him, and we'd always talk about sports. He's a huge Chicago sports fan. So so like it was talking on the phone or letters and things like that. But in those letters were a lot of I love yous and promises, and the actions didn't really fit up to what the letters said that would happen. So that was I think I gravitated towards sports to kind of fill that void quite a bit.
Oh, that's really powerful. So explain what your town was like growing up. So you're a mixed race kid. Is the town mixed race? Is it predominantly white, predominantly black? What's going on in your town? And did you kind of battle some racism growing up as well?
Southwest Wisconsin, town of about 5,000, bordering on the Mississippi River, bordering Iowa, is farm town. It's very, very white population. Me and maybe another black girl in my high school. Like that's it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like one other black person in your high school?
Yeah, that's it. I think one other one came our senior year, and like the most racist thing, not racist, maybe most stereotypical thing. This dude was like, bro, you got to play basketball, man. Like, and I was, captain of the basketball team. And I was like, you got to play, bro. Like all of us thought he was.
You talking to this guy?
Yeah, everyone was. Everyone. This is how, like, and it's not, I wouldn't call it racist. It was more ignorance of stereotypes.
Yeah.
This dude's like, I don't know, man. I'm like, oh, we ended up talking him into trying out. He was so bad. But so that's the type of town. And the type of town, like it was, I was always loved. There was some people, there were some bad apples that I got called the N-word, or what are you? Are you an Indian? Are you a Native American? Like not using the correct terminology for any of it.
In a derogatory way, saying,
So there was some stuff growing up where I knew I didn't look like everyone else. But at the same time, with my personality, it was always, I'm extroverted. I want people to love me and like me, with that people pleaser thing. I'm really good with sports. So like I had a lot of friends from having a lot of teammates. And a lot of people didn't really like see it as a problem. But I think for me in high school, my identity was rooted in sports. But also as far as ethnically goes, like it was rooted in whatever you think I am or want me to be, I'll be. Like I didn't have a relationship with my dad. So like I didn't have like the black community in there at all, like not at all. And so growing up, it just wasn't, I tried to cut my hair like the other white kids, and I've got, curly hair that, it's kind of a little bit more like a Blake Griffin type of a style of hair. And or Aaron, like some of these guys that kind of are a little bit darker, but can appear white if needed to be, type of thing. And so, that it was different, but for me, I was just like, I just want to play sports, whatever you want me to be.
So that's really interesting. And in the disabled community, we have some people that have a little bit of maybe their disability is mild and they can kind of mainstream and sort of, kind of fit in with the sort of mainstream crowd, but then they do have a disability, so they relate over here. Did you feel like you were kind of balancing between the sort of the white and the black world a little bit, even though you didn't really have the black world to sort of connect?
Yeah. So it started my freshman year, because then I started a relationship with my dad's dad, my grandpa, and he's my hero. He was one of the first 13 black commissioned officers in the Navy back during World War II.
No way.
And an amazing dude, great looking guy. He modeled up until he was 80 years old, and for catalogs, Sears and JCPenney and that whole thing. And
I probably saw him growing up in the catalog.
Yeah, man. He probably, yeah, exactly. So his name was Frank E. Sublette, and that's my dad's last name. I Delagrave was an adopted name from my stepdad. Yeah. I started to kind of, like you're asking, started to kind of go, oh, there's a different side to who I am and where I come from.
And you can't hide it, right? There's no escaping it, but you kind of find ways to blend in.
Yeah. As much as a 6'6" dude could.
Okay, so let's talk about what sports you did growing up. It sounds like they were a place where you were out there trying to prove yourself.
Yeah, Clayton. I did swimming in middle school during the summer.
Been the next Michael Phelps, man. 6'6".
I like food way too much. Well, they like food too, but just anyway. I was not. I was
have to train like this.
Yeah. I'm not doing all those left. And then baseball was a big one. Football, of course, was a big one. Basketball.
What was your best sport growing up? Football?
Probably basketball, because I was a little bit too much of a teddy bear, if I'm gonna be honest with you. But I ended up playing that in college. But I think I was a little bit too much of a teddy bear.
Really?
A little bit. I'm a lot more. Yeah. I think so. Basketball is what I spent the most time on. I just loved being in the gym, especially when by myself. I was by myself a lot and putting up shots and just enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, other sports were, basketball, football, baseball, were the big ones. We did, I don't know, and then you get anything competitive, like mathletes type stuff. Yeah. Did you always think you were good enough to get to play in college? Like, was that always a dream? It was always a dream. And when I was a freshman, I was 6'4" already. And the coach was like, "Hey, you got potential." It's like the most dangerous word possible, right? You got potential. So, I mean, looking back, you go, the body is there. And then it's like what I tell my kids, it's how much effort are you putting in? Are you a good teammate? Do you communicate well? That type of thing, where those intangibles that you can control and don't have to have an athletic bone in your body to do, I think are really important.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me a little bit about your, I don't know, call it like your emotional and sort of self-confidence journey as a kid, kind of making it through high school. Did sports sort of prop you up from a confidence standpoint, or you had a really great loving home, with your mom and then your stepdad at some point, so you weren't really like spiraling? And I guess because a lot of us go through a period in our younger years where we struggle, and we get into trouble, like it causes problems at school or outside of school. So like, where was your kind of, where was your emotional state and confidence level kind of going through the years, junior high, high school?
Yeah. Like I think I was too busy in high school to get into trouble, really. I mean, yeah, we did some dumb things like all teenagers probably do.
What's the dumbest thing you did in high school or junior high?
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah. I love childhood stories.
Dude, I told this at my buddy's wedding, who they're not divorced. Maybe it wasn't the story to tell, but it's one of my best friends in life, my buddy Adam. And so I stuck a fire what are the little rocket things? What are they called? Little rocket launcher things where you light and they just go way up in the air, like 10 feet, 20 feet, no, 100 feet.
We call it a bottle rocket, maybe?
Maybe? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been around.
Oh, like an M80 or whatever, those things.
Just a little bottle rocket thing, but it has a really small little stick, and we thought it'd be a good idea to stick it right up his, butt and light it up. That was the dumbest thing I've done. And the first, yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm in, man, I'm in," and just a bunch of stupid boys. And the first one did. He was totally fine, but the first one, he clenched too hard and it didn't go up. I mean, you wanted it. I can't believe I just told that story. I cannot believe I just. And Clayton, you're such a good interviewer where you're like, hey, tell me.
I just love childhood stories, man. And the dumber, the better, because we've all done really stupid things.
Yeah. But
I'll trade a story. So
okay, fair enough.
It's not quite that bad, but junior high-ish, right? I was on the East Coast, and you just get bored. And so my buddy and I started throwing snowballs at cars.
Okay.
And somebody didn't like that, and some dude stopped his car. I mean, it's like snowing. It's like snow everywhere.
Yeah.
Stopped the car, ran across the street at us, and we run. And I lived on this park, so I ran back through the park in my house, and this dude was like banging on the door. And I don't think my parents were home, or else I would have been in real trouble.
Oh,
so I got lucky that he wasn't willing to break into my house to get me.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, yeah, obviously, it was raging at the time.
I stopped throwing snowballs at cars after that.
I would imagine, man.
I still remember the feeling of running, because it's snowing. There's a full-on adult guy running out there. I'm just a little kid, man.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I think I was in too much stuff because other than like sports, but then also like student council and National Honor Society and that whole deal. And then I was in theater too. So I did the whole plays and musicals thing. Wasn't as talented at that. I mean, I was pirate number 7, Pirates of Penzance. That's a pretty big deal. It's right now. I'm kidding. Maybe if I was pirate number 6 or something like that, but now that part of it was fun too. Yeah.
When did you stop doing theater?
In high school. Yeah, high school. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so so you're playing football, right? You get asked to play in college.
Yeah.
College football. What was that like? So you played one season?
Played one season. And my welcome to college, it was amazing. The whole year was amazing. Like, let's put it and
but is it hard to be at the bottom of the ladder and be a freshman? You have to
yes. You want to know like the best first impression ever that I made? Okay, so it was it's 7-on-7 drills. So offensive and defensive line are off the field, 7-on-7. You got the wide receivers against cornerbacks, and I was a tight end against linebackers, safeties, and yada yada yada. So we're lined up, and all the tight ends are in a line, and there's like 2 other, maybe 3 other freshman tight end there. And they started pushing me to the front of the line, like all the older guys. And I was like, oh, they want to see what this big boy can do. So I'm like, all right, great. Like, I'm 18, so I had all the confidence in the world, and I was naive, and I had no idea why they're pushing me up there. And then, so across from the field was Derek Seek. He's a Hall of Famer at Winona now, 2-time All-American. He was 23 at the time. Like, he was a 5th-year senior. He was a man. I was like the teddy bear over there. He was like a full-grown man, and he looked the linebacker part, the flowing blonde hair, the drool, the whole thing. And so all I had to do was a 5-yard in route, just 5 yards out the field, cut in, catch the ball. So I'm like, all right, I can do this. I'm going to make a great impression. It's going to be great. So I get 5 yards, cut, catch the ball. And at that moment, I'm thinking like, I'm a pimp, man. This is great, like best ever impression on this little 5-yard thing. Derek had just been waiting for me to catch the ball. Absolutely destroyed me, depleted me, put me on my head. I'm on the ground. I'm seeing like the Tweety Bird things. Like, I definitely was concussed. at that point.
This is when we didn't really care about concussions, though.
This was like, get up, don't show them you're not hurt type of deal.
Right. And you're
and I'm like, I'm hurt, man. Like, I am so hurt. I'm hurting everywhere. And I wish State Farm had those commercials back then when you're like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and then you vanish. You just disappear, because at that point it's like, this is miserable.
You're like, vanish.
Yeah.
Out of here.
The defense is going nuts for Derek. Offense is like, get your butt up, get up. So I get up, I run back the huddle, concussed, and Derek and the defense were like, dude, you're at the wrong huddle. You gotta go back to the offensive side, man. It was the worst impression I could ever.
You ran the wrong way?
I ran into the defensive huddle. I was so concussed,
my God,
instead of the offensive huddle. And it was the worst impression ever, but I ended up making, better impressions as the camp went along, and played as a true freshman. And the whole year was really magical. Went to the playoffs and that whole thing, and just,
wow.
Yeah, it was great.
I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
All right. So I think this is where your old sport journey and your new sport journey start to come together. It's that summer where you're in a boating accident. Can you just kind of walk us through what happened there?
Yeah. So I went back to Prairie du Chien, like most college kids do their freshman year, and go back and live with mom and dad, work, a couple of different jobs just to get some money. So I was working for the city and working at the local Pizza Hut, and
delivering pizzas or making pizzas?
Making them and eating them a lot. Yeah. My manager ended up yelling.
I've had that job. It's a good job.
Yeah. It's a good job. Great benefits there. And so doing that whole deal and living the summer life, training my butt off, because I wanted to be the tight end in the fall. And on the weekends in Prairie, you'd go on the river, like it's a river town. And so as much as you can get on the river to
fish.
Is it
really beautiful there?
Kneeboard. It's a beautiful area. It's called the Driftless region, where the glaciers didn't mow over everything. So there's bluffs, and the Wisconsin River meets the Mississippi River. So it's a fishing and hunting paradise, when it's not the frozen tundra or whatever. So, yeah. And so we were on the river on a weekend, like we were most weekends that year, and July 10, 2004. So almost 17 years ago now. And Kyle, one of my best friends growing up, Kyle and Adam and I grew up on the same Ohio street together, like 3 different blocks, and boom, boom, boom. And Adam's kneeboarding, Kyle's driving the boat. We're in a back slough, so like a little back channel of the Mississippi River, which you never really know how deep or shallow, just depending on the year and how much snow is melted. In the summer, with some of the moisture evaporating, it's going to be a little bit more shallow, and which we knew that. I mean, we weren't stupid out there, really at all. And Kyle accidentally hit the bottom of the river. I flew backwards. I was just sitting in the boat on this pole chair, right? That you bass fish off and stuff. That pole snapped. I flew backwards, hit my head on the front of the boat, inside the boat. And that's where the force snapped my C6 and 7 vertebrae, which are 6 and 7 vertebrae down from the base of your skull. And in a split second, life was changed.
It's incredible. And I know, listen, in our community, right, we got all kinds of stories.
Yeah.
And it just makes you really pause a minute to realize it could happen to any of us at any time for the most random reasons. Were you knocked out, or were you coherent?
Knocked out for about 45 seconds to a minute, and woke up to excruciating pain. My head had been split open where the impact was.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was paralyzed or anything yet, and just had an excruciating pain coming from my head with bleeding, of course, and was just kind of in a panic. And Kyle and Adam were looking over me.
I was going to say, so 45 seconds in that scenario is
I'm sure it's eternity. Yeah, especially for them.
Not for you. You're out. Like your buddies. What would they do? Like, what do they tell you when they recount the story?
Yeah. So, and we've had this talk a few times. We were all lifeguards growing up because we wanted to just hang around the cute girls and like, you know, I mean,
be near the pool, right?
We be near the pool, work on your,
like, you got that tall chair. So you got the best view.
Work on it. We never had to save anyone. We just did some swim lessons and hung out with the kids and like talked about what you're going to do on the weekend. And it was a great job in high school, but they knew not to move my neck. They knew not to move me, but they're looking down over me. Tears rolling down their face. Kyle's frantic. Adam's trying to ask me these questions about like, can you move your legs? And I send the signal from my brain down through my spinal cord, like you do subconsciously to move anything on your body, and nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's like, I was thinking like maybe a stinger, like I've had in football with my shoulders, a million times or whatever it would be. But then they're like, Joe, can you touch your legs and can you feel your legs? And I felt my legs, and it felt like I was touching someone else's legs. It like crazy out of body experience.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, so you're aware, you're awake, you get medevac out of there.
Yeah, like it was a slow process. It went from boat to rescue boat to ambulance to the local hospital, and then med flighted from there after staying there for quite a couple hours, where they realized, okay, this is he broke his neck. Let's get him the heck out of here. So med flighted up to the local bigger hospital, regional hospital in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And they're like, you're going in for surgery. And I kind of remember some of it and remember them cutting my clothes and being really like, I worked hard to buy those clothes, bro. Like I just bought the swimming trunk. Like just thinking at the time, like, I think I had like a pierced ear and I was really mad about that. I just spent money. Like, you're 19, you're trying to like buy some cool things. Like what? Like, yeah. Cause I had no idea that this was going to be a permanent thing or going to be a wheelchair thing or going to be a spinal, like I don't know what a spinal cord injury is. Like, what are you talking about? So it was very like,
so when do you in the process here, when do you get that news and how do they break it to you?
Yeah. So I don't remember the first couple of days after surgery, but like, day 3, day 4, kind of going like,
surgery was to fuse a couple vertebrae together.
Yeah. Fuse C6 and 7. And they're like, you're a big boy. It took a while. It's going to turn you over into that whole thing. And 6'6", 260 pounds. And, so it's a big dude. And, I'm like, hopefully you guys didn't drop me in there. Jeez, like maybe I need to see some footage in there, guys. But no, like a couple of days later, I'm asking a lot of questions because at 19, you have a lot of questions already about life. And it's a really romantic time in life. If you look back and go, there's so many different choices that you can make, and it's going to send you down different paths in life. With like what school or like what major.
It's all opportunity, right? It's all
yeah. Like you're at the fork in the road of opportunity, but it's not a fork. There's like a million different ways you can go. And so when I'm realizing this thing is bigger, as a doctor comes in, and I'm like, hey, like my parents are asking, like, what's the prognosis here? And he's like, man, I'm going to tell you straight. You're not going to walk again. I'm like, what? Like, he's like, you maybe like a 3% chance that you will walk again. I'm an incomplete injury. But he's like, with what we saw, I don't want to give you false hope. And I'm just like, you hear that news at 19 and literally athletics are your identity. Like that's who you are. The persona of being 6'6" and you're tall. Like anyone that's tall has a persona, and they're either like the life of the room or they slouch a lot and they hate being that tall. Like there's only two. Like
you either own it or you don't, I guess. Right?
Yeah. And I definitely owned it, and that was just me. And to hear that I would have to use a wheelchair, and you start to figure out like I have to start using catheters. What are those? And I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. and all these different things. And I'm going like, why? And you're mad and you're bitter and there's resentment and you're sad and you're crying and like you're why there's no purpose in this. And there's like, my passion is completely ripped away. Mm-hmm. And what am I supposed to do with this?
And I'm guessing there was some phases of that, but how did you get through that initial phase with the news? And was there a moment a few weeks later, a month later, a few months later, where you sort of popped back into like, okay, I gotta really start moving, kind of getting into action?
Yeah, there's waves of both. Because there's waves of the athlete going like, let's figure this thing out. Let's be the big, rough, tough football player. And and as men, we tend to be very prideful and hey, we can rough it out. We can tough it out. We're men. And that was me. And then there was phases where I'm like, this is absolutely the most depressing thing ever. And I don't want to like do this. And then, for me, I'm a man of like the whole relationship with God I was just so mad because I want to know why. And I want to know how it's going to end. What's the end game here? What's life going to look like here? So I think if you get a little bit clear, like a clear picture of down the road, those decisions get a lot less scarier if you know the outcome beforehand.
As you're just saying all those things, Joe, it's not the same, but the same questions pop up to parents of kids with born with disabilities, because it is a similar point in your life where it's like, okay, all opportunities are on the table. You don't know if this kid's going to grow up to be president of the United States or an Olympic sprinter or anything, but everything's on the table at that point. And when because this is my journey, right? When the child is born with disability and you don't understand it and you don't know the answers to those questions, it feels like they've just taken everything off the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so good. And I never really realized, and I still don't, because my kids are healthy and able-bodied. But when I had kids, I could sympathize and have empathy for what my mom and my stepdad were going through when this whole thing happened, because it was just like, you don't get me and you don't feel it. And everyone's experience with what's going on is different, but
they were trying. They were there. They were trying to muscle through this.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
What would, if I called them up right now and just said, hey, tell me about, Joe's recovery period, what would they say? Were they bringing you positivity and trying to boost you, but you just sort of swatted them away? Like, what would they say? Like, what would they say?
I mean, the recovery period was like a wrestling match. In waves of, I would think they'd say waves of wanting to do it and not wanting to do it. And I think a lot of times we are harshest with the people we love in those moments. At times, like you're going to dump on people sometimes. And I did that to my mom a lot. And I love my mom dearly. And so she would, hey, God's got a plan for you and these Bible verses. And I'm like, I don't want this little thing is supposed to be in a coffee mug somewhere like this. And I just had a hard time with it when I'm in the hospital, because I'm just trying to process it. And like, I don't, that's great. That's great. But yeah.
Was there something like as you're talking, I totally agree with you. I think you're toughest on people you love. So is there a peer visit or something that sort of starts to help you get out of this?
It was, yeah. I mean, I got out of it right away, like very early on. I was like, all right, well, let's figure out, because that 3% gave you a little hope, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to all my therapy, occupational, physical. They wanted me to go to lunch, but I was only spinal cord injury on the unit. So I was like, I'm not going to eat with like grandparents that have strokes. Like, I'm not doing that whole thing as a 19-year-old kid. But for me, I think what helped me in the very, very acute week, maybe 2 weeks, was a plethora of people coming into my hospital room, based in the hotel room.
Don't you wish?
Yeah, exactly. And just being there and not even whatever they said wasn't important. It was their presence. Mm-hmm. And so, my parents, my girlfriend at the time, and her parents, my friends from college, my teammates from college, my high school teammates, my high school coaches. There were so many different people in that room. I was there 89 straight days.
Wow.
And every day, someone different's popping in saying, you got this. And when people around you are supporting you that much, for me, I mean, that's the way I'm made, is to receive that and then get fired up by it. Like, I'm just an affirmation guy. That's one of my love languages. And I think that really, really helped me, having a solid group of people around me going like, dude, we know your work ethic. We know who you are. You're going to get through this. And then you start to maybe believe a little bit. And on the opposite side, you're around people that, hey, this sucks. And they have the Eeyore mentality, and that you are what your environment is a lot of times. And I think that really, really helped me get through those really dark moments in those first couple of weeks.
Oh gosh. So the athlete mindset helps you. The little 3% nugget helps you. And then the community kind of rallies, friends, family, teammates, all that. Any other missing link there? Because I think these are good stories for everyone to really understand.
Yeah.
Because it could happen to any of us. And, what is the formula that helps us stay strong?
Yeah, I think having hope and faith in something is important as well. And I think, for me, that was my belief in God. And it's a crazy story, and I love sharing it, and whatever someone believes. I'm not here to preach one way or the other, or anything like that. But it's my story. And so I can't really tell it without telling this part. Is a week before my accident, I'm wearing this Don Beebe House of Speed shirt. I don't know if you remember Don Beebe or not. He's a Buffalo Bill in the 90s, little white receiver, played for the Packers in the 90s, won the Super Bowl after all those losses with the Bills. And he had a big speed camp in Wisconsin that I never went to. Should have, because I was like a cheeseburger away from being a tackle as a tight end. So I definitely should have went, but I didn't go. I got the shirt from our kicker, who was like a senior. He's a great dude. But he's giving me crap because I had forgotten my shirt. And he goes, here's the House of Speed, since you're like the slowest dude on this team, and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, whatever, man. I ran great routes. My receiver coach was always yelling at his receivers. He's like, Joe's so slow. He always gets open and whatever. And I'm like, hey, route running, baby, let's do it. And, but anyway, this House of Speed shirt was given to me. I had it on a week before my accident. I had no idea there's a little, like, tiny Bible verse in a corner, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. And a week later, I have the accident. And my sister said, I remembered that verse, but like I said, I was so mad. Like I'm not trusting it. I want to know what's going on, and I want to like understand it, and I want to like comprehend it. So there's a wrestling match there, but that was put on my wall in the hospital room, like day 2. And I would just stare at it in the morning, and I'd be so mad, so angry.
But who put it there? What did you?
My sisters.
Did they know you had seen it on the shirt? And
I remembered that. I was like, wow, because I when I had it on my shirt, I was working with basketball youth at a youth camp, and one of the camp counselors was like, hey man, look at that shirt, dude, like that Bobbers. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, well, I don't know, like whatever. And he said it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like that's a really cool quote, whatever. And I just remembered it after my accident. And part of it was comforting, but a lot of it was like, no, I don't want to do that. And it was a wrestling match. One other thing in the hospital, if I can, I was active in the youth group in Prairie. And a month after my accident, another kid, he was 16. I was 19. He was 16, got in an accident. He was over across the river in Iowa at the state fair, was driving home on a dirt road, got in a one vehicle accident, was thrown from the vehicle, broke his neck, and died on impact. And I think his story has really, like, the dude was amazing. He was an amazing kid, really, really on fire for life and his faith, and he's gone. And I think at that moment, I realized, like, I've got a choice in this. And right now I'm kind of going down the victim route. It's Kyle's fault. He was driving the boat, which I wasn't driving. I was just sitting there. But if I sulk in that and I place the blame on someone else and I just play the blame game, life gets really rigid.
Yeah.
But if you choose to go, whoa, I've got a second chance here. I'm paralyzed, but I'm living.
Mm-hmm.
That all of a sudden, like you said, all options are on the table. There's mobility in this, in that situation. I think that really, really helped me out. And so his name was Josh. And, I'd love to share that story because I think it's important to kind of tell where that helped with some of that shift a month in, going like, okay, Joe, like, yeah, this sucks, but you have life, you're breathing, and there's tomorrow right now, there's today, and you're probably gonna have tomorrow too, hopefully. And let's pick this thing up a little bit.
I really like that story, and we're gonna talk about purpose later, but I'm sure we'll go back, kind of double back to that story, because I think purpose is important for all of us, regardless of our challenges. Purpose to me gives us resilience, and so wherever you can find it, is hopeful, and that perspective that life can end like that.
Yeah,
life is not. We're not entitled to this life at all. Okay, we will come back to this because I think it's powerful. I think you're gonna have a lot more wisdom. And I was predicting you were going to be giving us a lesson in resilience at the top of the show, and so far you're proving so. All right, I want you to explain the disability and what it means to be a quad. But can you just tell me, like, is there a story around your wife?
Yeah. So I was gonna tell it.
Like she might be really important.
I was gonna tell it. She's the most important.
Thank you.
I'm no dummy. I'm gonna be married 14 years from tomorrow, day of recording. And man, like, so we start dating when we're 18, end of our senior year, maybe a month left. And it's like, okay, whatever. It's a little fling.
So you're
I dated another girl at like 3 years of high school, and I'm just like, oh, here's a little fling before college. Who knows where it's gonna go? But we just started to really like to be around each other, and I went to Winona State for football. She was running track for UWL that freshman year, which are about 30 minutes apart, 40 minutes maybe. And so, not at the same school, but dated throughout that entire year. I'd come down there. She'd come up to Winona, whatever. And it was going great. And I think, accident happens, and you hear stories all the time of it just doesn't work out, or, like they're like, hey, you didn't sign up for this.
You hear stories. It's hard to believe, but parents of a child that's born with a disability break up because of a child. It's not even one of the spouses, it's your child. And that's when you need to come together to help raise the kid, not blow it up. So you're right. It happens all the time. Disability really hurts relationships.
It does. And she shows up at the hospital, that day and the next day, and 89 straight days she's there, at least.
Are you serious?
Never missed a day. Did
anybody else attend all 89 days?
No.
Oh my
gosh. And so she's the opposite of me. She's introverted. I call her the silent assassin because when you get to know her, she has great one-liners. And
what'd you say, silent assassin?
The silent assassin, because she's just like, she's in the background, and with me, I'm just loud and I love to talk and I just like, she just is the ultimate life partner. And when we were doing this whole thing, it freaked me out because, like, you don't see people that have unconditional love very often. Mm-hmm. Like, I think as parents, there's a lot of that. Hopefully, I know I strive for that. But partners, a lot of times we get in these marriages, relationships that are kind of transactional, or do this for me and I do this for you. And she just showed me at 19 years old this unconditional love. That was crazy amazing. I actually did the dumbest thing ever, which, as guys, we do some dumb. I broke up with her for a while. I was like, I don't know if I love you as much as you love. Like, this is crazy. And then, a month later, I'm just like, wrong decision. I want you back so bad. Like the whole thing. And so we ended up being married very, very young. We were engaged at 20 and married at 22, and 14 years later, here we are. But her ability to love, and there's some other really important friends there as well. Some really close friends from Winona State and teammates and coaches there. We're up there too. But for April to do that and is just, you talk about where I would be without sports, but where I would be without that love in the hospital room to say, man, I'm not going anywhere. Like, and in the first couple of years of a disability for me, or for people that acquire it, and you're wrestling through a lot of mental things, and then physically, when you're 6'6", 260 pounds, a football player, and then you sit in a wheelchair, it's not just a wheelchair. It's like you look in the mirror and like, who the heck is this person? And you're just trying to find yourself, and you don't love how you look. And I don't understand how someone can love you like that. And just some ugly, ugly times that she's been through with me.
And tell me what you think about this. So obviously I interact with this community frequently, all ages, all challenges and disabilities, really the gamut. And I feel like men really go to a dark place. And I don't know that women don't. I'm just saying, like, I don't, is it the macho thing? Is it the sport thing? Is, like the definition that we have for ourselves seems very tied to sort of our physical prowess, physical abilities, even if we're not an elite athlete like you were, but, my ability to surf, right, would be the thing that I would be so sad about. Snowboard or whatever. So, you faced that. You had to look that one in the mirror.
Honestly, it's something that in a way you don't really get over, because you have to battle it each day. Some of those thoughts and feelings can come back in, and then you learn to kind of have some tools ready to combat it, because there's not, like, when you're at training camp, and I'm a quadriplegic, and I think you asked me about like what all that means, and I guess I can ask or tell people in a second, but like to the person that doesn't know me or doesn't know my story, or maybe, some accomplishments or what I play, they're just like, this dude's crippled. Like, you look at me and it's like, nice. Or some people are like, oh, I didn't even know you're quad, like you're para, and like you're very well, you're fit, whatever, which is like, yeah, that's great, man. But then when, the 80-year-old grandma's opening the door for me, I'm like, oh, so like, that's like the daily occurrence, or at least weekly occurrence, where you're reminded of what people think of you. And for the recovering people pleaser, having to battle through that over the years and realizing, like, I can't find my value and worth in whether or not I can open a door or run a drill or a screwdriver, which I do sometimes, but then it's like, or mow the lawn. Like in the Midwest, man, I lived in Phoenix for 8 years. We didn't have to do with lawn care whatsoever. You come back to the Midwest, that's all the dads do. They sit in their lawn and they're mowing, and they're doing and shoveling and drink, and like, and it's a real deal. Like, I was like, April.
And you have big lawns too. We don't have very big yards.
Yeah. Like, they're like, hey man, I got the Ryder 5000 John Deere. And I'm like, I don't care. But so it's a common, I don't think I would be lying if I said I didn't struggle with that at times, of that masculinity definition in our society. So I think you're spot on with what you're saying.
Yeah, no, and I want to figure it out. Because it breaks my heart when I meet these wonderful men that just have this really low self-esteem and low perspective on who they are. And, I don't know, I think we got to do a better job of pulling them up, because I call them the dark period, and everybody goes through it.
Yes.
I almost have to go through it, but can we just shorten it up? Can we tighten it up, reduce maybe the extreme, darkness, and move people, in and out as fast as we can? So in that vein, give me some advice. You would say, someone was essentially going through what you went through, 20-year-old vibrant young man athlete that's becomes a quad overnight? What do you tell them?
Yeah, I've gotten the chance to do that throughout the years, doing peer mentoring, and for a lot of the kids that or adults that go through that is they don't want to hear anything about it. They want to see some crippled dude come in their room, but then later in life they realize that was a great moment. So what I tell people about, or what I would tell myself if I could go back, is like, we look for our miracles or our opportunities on the outside of the context that we can see or live in the environment. And, I'm begging God to wiggle a toe or move a leg or take this away or whatever. And looking back, realizing that my miracle was the wheelchair. And I know it sounds cliche and people are like, come on, dude, like there's no way. But my opportunity was laying right next to me in the hospital room where I couldn't move. And I felt obviously physically trapped, but mentally going like, there's nothing for me. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you get in the wheelchair, stuff starts to snowball in a really cool way, in a positive way. And I've
heard some people refer to the wheelchair as sort of their freedom.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's a little bit similar to how you view it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you put a little perspective on it and go like, 100 years ago, we didn't have the mobility that we had before.
When was the wheelchair invented? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, you remember seeing like the old wooden things, like the Roosevelt president, with his and going like, that bad boy's not going to be pushing around anywhere. Like it's a
that looked like his chair looked like a TV chair.
Yeah, that like nobody can be independent in.
Right.
But when you start to learn how to become independent, and I think if you polled most people that use wheelchairs, their biggest obstacle isn't the wheelchair. It's a lot of the mental things that come along, or it's some of the physical things that people don't ever talk about. Mm-hmm. With some of the bowels and bladder type stuff that when you're a quadriplegic or paraplegic that you or spina bifida or like whatever, mm-hmm. that is a real deal and it's real, and a lot of people are ashamed of it. And it's like I didn't acquire this because I did something wrong or whatever. Like I should never be ashamed of myself and who I am and what I have to do, because it is what it is. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of. And so talking about it and in appropriate forums, I think is really important with some of the advocacy going on in our community.
Let's take a quick break to learn more about the Equipment Loaner Program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner Program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
All right, so let's shift into your journey into adaptive sports, and how do you find adaptive sports first of all, and then how do you sort of pick rugby? Was it love at first sight? Did you kind of grind for a little bit, and then somebody told you had talent? Like what's that journey like for you? And my guess is your journey is different than many, because many is so random. You're such an intentional guy, so I feel like you're gonna give me a little more intent. But who knows? Yeah. Surprise me. But it's just so damn random out there, which is one of the things we need to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. Right away, and by right away I mean a year to a year and a half into my spinal cord injury, I wanted nothing to do with anyone in a wheelchair, any disability. I didn't want people to put me in that group. Like I don't want some community. I don't want some support group. I don't want anything. because, you know, I'm
Even
still
if
like,
they were the same disability as you
yeah, nothing to do with it. I don't have a lot.
Like the old guy with stroke, but like the young guy with a
even the young
cord
guy, or I knew of, I don't know if you remember Jeff Glassbrenner. He was a wheelchair basketball player on the national team for 4 different Paralympics, and ended up he's an amputee, climbed Mount Everest, and that whole, like, a phenomenal dude. And was from Boscobel, Wisconsin, which was like a half hour away from where I grew up. And I knew he played wheelchair basketball. I knew he played for Team USA. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, this guy, like, I don't know. Because I thought I had this in my mind that adaptive sports were pathetic. Like, that's the real deal. I thought, no way can they give me the competitive, like, quench of my fire than like college sports. And I wasn't even playing D1. Like, I was D2. Like, and
but you knew. But is that because you learned about it during the rehab process and your mental state was a little more negative, or that was a prior opinion?
No, I think some ignorance for sure. Yeah. Some prior ignorance. And then, and in the hospital, I remember someone being like, hey, they've got like Team USA adaptive sports, whatever. Like,
you're like, nah,
no. And
so it feels like a step down for a college athlete.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I just didn't want because right away people were so loving and so kind, but I didn't want the cheap inspiration. I kind of got tired of people saying, you're so strong and you're so this. And if you only knew, like, I'm struggling here, guys. Like, and I'm thinking, like, if I play a sport, like, then they're going to be like, oh my God. Like, I thought it was going to be a little bit different than what it was. So I went back to college. And so, like, I was still making good choices, not with nutrition. I got really, really fat. But I was like, okay, I want to be out in the community. I want to go, work at the pool at the front desk and push around, or go play cards or whatever it is and still hang out. But I just ate like a football player. Still, I got really, really big. And one of my buddies was like, dude, in the lovingest way possible, was like, yeah, you're really fat. Like, maybe we should get you weighed. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I had lost a bunch of weight in the hospital because of, laying there and all that good stuff. So I was about 220, and he talked me into getting weighed. I ended up getting weighed. I was like 285 pounds. Told the nurse, like, their bed's broken, everything. She's like, Joe, like, it's not. And I was like, come on, buddy. And so there was that. And then going back to college and realizing through helping the football team out still and be on the sidelines. And I realized there was a competitiveness that hadn't been paralyzed. Like, I was just raging when those guys came through. I was like, I want to do that. Like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. I'm like ready to push my wheelchair out there or whatever. And
if you hadn't gone back to the football team, you might not have known that. At least it might have taken longer to find that.
I think it would have taken longer to find. And so through having people in my life because I think it's so important to have a good inner circle that'll lift you up when you need it, pull you back when you need it. Kyle was pulling me back saying, let's do something about your weight. You're not going to be able to push around the block, let alone.
It's a brutal conversation for a buddy. I mean,
he was the guy that was driving the boat.
I can't even remember ever saying anything like that to any of my friends. So, like, that's kudos to him.
Yeah. And super nice about it. And so I started looking up wheelchair sports. I remember being in my dorm room at Winona State. And already I was starting to kind of advocate for myself a little bit where, they didn't have any accessible rooms left. I'm like, you guys need to build one. I'm coming to school. You can't not offer me what. And so they ended up building an extra room for me with my, and the whole thing. And being on Google and just typing in, adaptive sports. They're like, how'd you find rugby? Did you go to try? Did you go try? I just typed it in to Google. I want to find something to play. And so I typed in wheelchair basketball because that's what I heard about when I was little, about Jeff Glassbrenner. And I'm like, ooh, don't have function to do that. And then I looked at wheelchair racing. And I always joke, like, I never tell people I love to run because I didn't love to run. I wanted to play team sports. And wheelchair racing, I'm like, okay, this is like running, but in a wheelchair, and I'm going to push around a circle. That's not the way I was made. No way. And so, like, next.
I hate running too, by the way. I hate running. Oh gosh.
It's it was always a means to an end for sports. And then I clicked on the murder ball thing. And it wasn't even like, it was just a murder ball link. I wasn't the documentary.
Just some other like little video or something.
What is this? And saw these guys smashing into each other. And like, so the thought in my ignorant head was these crippled people are chasing into these other crippled people and smashing into them as hard as they could, like trying to make them more crippled. It was a weird oxymoron deal here. And it was the first time, I think what gravitated towards me right away was, this is something that people told me I couldn't do anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, you can run and you can race and you can ride your bike and hand cycle. And it was never, hey, you can go smash into people. And I was like, wow, this looks really cool. And April and she was, down in La Crosse still. And I was like, hey, do you want to take a ride up to Minneapolis, Minnesota to a place called Courage Center? I called the guys up there. Hey, when's practice? Like Sunday and Wednesday nights. I'm like, all right, I'm coming Sunday night. And so I got up there and I thought I was just going to watch, like get in the wheelchair, the rugby chair. It was this old, like top end rugby chair, beat up.
Yeah. Been handed down generations.
Yeah. And I got into it, and it was that specific day, take all the medals away, take all the accolades away. That specific day when life changed when sports changed my life, that specific day, where 30 minutes into practice, my lungs were filling with air, couldn't sweat because of my accident, but my body's getting hotter. I'm like, oh, I got to pee, this whole thing. I'm playing. I was terrible at it, but I'm like, it was just an aha moment of I can be an athlete again. And with that, as I came back that next Wednesday and the next Sunday night and the next Wednesday, driving 2.5 hours from Winona, I realized I was coming back not only for the rugby, but to be around people. I never knew I needed to be around people that looked like me, because when I was around them, I saw people with my disability that were independent. Mm-hmm. I didn't need an April to help them in and out of the car with the sliding board and baby powder so I could slide my cheeks across faster. They didn't need help going to the bathroom. They didn't need help getting in their chairs. Like I was just in awe. And none of those guys in Minnesota were good at rugby, like on the elite side. And they know this.
Were playing. They were playing.
It was club rugby, recreational. Mm-hmm. But those guys in that gym completely changed my life.
Wow. It's so great. And I one of the things that I'm really passionate about, Joe, is making sure we've created lots of safe entry points.
Yeah.
And by safe, I mean a lot of things. I mean, it's fun, it's easy, it's free, it's safe in terms of, kind of stigmas and ridicule. And it's sort of like it makes you feel like you're kind of home. It's, positive, encouraging, all that stuff. So it sounds like you found that, as soon as you started looking, you found it pretty quickly, which is amazing. We need to create those sort of safe entry points all over the country, all over the world, frankly. Yes. That's a beautiful story. It's funny. One of my questions is, was there an aha moment for you? And you just nailed it. Like you like looking at my questions. I'm like, how do you know what I'm going to ask you, man? Okay. So what year is that? Is that 2008?
That was 2006. That was like the spring of 2006. I was like, when's the next practice? They're like, we're taking the summer off. I'm like, oh, I only got like 3 practices. And so I came back that fall.
Is it 2 years after the injury?
So a little less than 2 years after the injury. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm just trying to get the timeline.
Yep.
So then you've been playing at a pretty elite level for quite some time. And just tell me a little bit about what London was like. And then I want to hear a little bit about what it was like to not make the Rio team.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So after playing for a little bit, and then I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this sport. I was playing D3 or D2. Like I wasn't very good, but I thought I was. And I was like, man, I can make the US team. I remember watching the guys in Beijing, and they won gold in China 2008. And that was when I was like, I want to do this. And for me as an athlete, I knew if I want the goal to happen, the behaviors need to happen, the actions need to happen. And so the choices need to be in line with that. And so that was kind of like, already built in. And so I started losing weight and all that whole thing. And so I ended up making London. I was cut in 2009 from our travel squad that went to South America, but I was on the training squad, and that was my first year there. Cut from the 2010 World Championship team, but then a guy retired and was asked back, and coach called me, and I'm like, yeah, this dude's gonna, yeah, coach got me, I'm gonna be on the team. He's like, you want to have a 3-player tryout? And I'm like, 3-player tryout, bro? Yeah, I do. And ended up getting on the team.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so I ended up making it that year and becoming a world champion in 2010. And in 2011, went down to Bogota, Colombia. And that's where I kind of had my coming out party with, hey, this guy can play. And we were playing Canada and ended up winning by about 12, which is a huge blowout in rugby terms with elite level rugby, because it's only by 1 point a score. And so that's, 12 possessions. So it was a big win. And that's what kind of catapulted me to become a Paralympian in London. London was amazing. My wife and our firstborn son were there. He was 6 months old. And so seeing them in the audience, and
is it easy? Is it easy to see them in the stands?
I've always been, even from when I was little, I always wanted to see where my mom was. I didn't want her to talk because she had a high pitched voice. She's very tall, blonde. And I'm like, Mom, you're going to embarrass me. She had a big, huge pink coat. I'm like, Mom, I love you. Just don't open your mouth. And she would, of course she would. But I've always wanted to know where my family is, because it just fires me up to play for them. And so my parents were there and this whole thing.
So cool.
And it was amazing. It was an amazing deal. Obviously, it didn't end the way we wanted it to. We got a bronze medal. Right. I call it the brown poopy medal for a long, long time. It was just the wrong color. And because we played Canada in the semifinals. We had just beat them in Bogota the year before.
And you couldn't get it done there.
Lost. We were down by 9 in the first quarter. Talk about crap in the bed. First quarter, down by 9. Fought all the way back. Clayton, this was going to be, Hollywood was going to come calling for this movie. Let's make Mighty Ducks 4, the wheelchair rugby version. And we tie the game, 55 seconds left. I mean, the Mighty Ducks theme music, the Chariots of Fire, the whole thing. And we turn the ball over. Canada goes to score. We lose the game by 1. Go to the gold medal game. Devastating, right? Anti-Disney. Yep. And so the next 4 years, I became a captain in 2013, 14, 15. The next 4 years was tunnel visioned on the outcome of gold in Rio. If gold. And it got to the point, and I think this happens a lot with goals, dreams, desires, they stop becoming goals and they start becoming idols. And they kind of twist your thinking, where for me, I thought I need to go to Rio and win gold to validate myself as a leader, as a teammate, for my career, as a husband, a father, the whole thing. At that point, all 3 of our kids were born. And so when I found out that I wasn't going to Rio, talk about devastation, man. I felt like the biggest freaking failure, man.
It's not like you are failing quietly in the corner.
No,
you're already kind of a star. You've already had this amazing career, and now you're getting sort of knocked back down.
Yeah. And it, you know what? Some stuff went on too. And I think there's times where you go oh, the coaches are making a bad decision. I should be on this team. And you have teammates that say, you should have been on this. But if you sulk in that, I truly believe that victim mentality is so easy to kind of go down, and it snowballs in a really negative way, because you can just blame other people. You don't have to deal with yourself. I could say, you know what? Even though I might have deserved to be on that team, there's some things I can change. I can learn how to be a better leader and start to serve my teammates, and not just in a way where hey, I love you, but we have to win gold for me to really love you type of thing. Compared to let's build a foundation in servant love of what can I do for you? How can I help you as a brother? And so that moment, I mean, I felt broken, man. I felt that devastation was close to where my accident was.
Right.
As far as just feeling ripped apart. But I had a really good mentor, and my mentor down in Arizona, I had graduated from graduate school as a professional counselor, and this mentor of mine, where he worked for the Diamondbacks for 15 years. And so knew sports, and just kind of talked to me through Joe, your validation doesn't need to come from medals. Your worth and feelings of accomplishment or whatever, doesn't need to be validated. Your identity doesn't need to be rooted in just the athlete or what the athlete accomplishes. He's you need to be a husband and a father to your kids. Your faith should be rooted in where you find your value and worth as well. And so realizing that over the last 4 or 5 years has been a really beautiful thing for me.
Talk to me a little, just explain, if you can, explain the sport of quad rugby a bit for anyone who maybe don't quite understand it. We'll make sure the YouTube version has some photos and stuff.
Awesome.
See a little bit, but like what really is the sport? Because it's really cool. I mean, I watched it in Rio. It was amazing.
Crazy, right? It's first of all, the genesis of the sport I think is awesome. I love innovation. And I think adaptive sports are always like striving with that. And I mean, the innovation behind prosthetics over the years, insane. And wheelchair rugby is no different. It's a bunch of people that played wheelchair basketball and couldn't play because they're low level of function. And they decided to make a sport up back in 1977. And it's basically grew in.
So in other words, the quads, meaning that all the upper limbs are affected by the paralysis. Lower, can't keep up with the guys that have
they just can't
functioning upper bodies, right?
And the classification system was never structured around designed for quads. So it's like, unless you're like Superman, like this bad boy is not going to happen.
So it's great. It's another way of turning, maybe something that looks like a door is being closed into an opportunity, which is all the quads weren't able to be elite in basketball and competitive basketball. And then they start this movement to start a new sport for themselves.
Start a new sport. And they said, you know what would be fun? Us smashing into each other. And these guys were in everyday chairs that just were breaking, and there's screws and bolts going everywhere. Like your chair's getting smashed. It's like, how are you going to get home, dude? Like, it's just insane, the grassroots of it. But the sport starts to learn how to innovate and how to make some chairs that look and can take hits. And so, 2000 looked a lot different from 2004, looked a lot different from 2008 and all the way up now until Tokyo. And the sport has just grown so much. And there's a lot of amputees that play the sport. You need to have disability in at least 3 limbs to play. So there's a lot of
you could be a triple amputee basically.
Yep. And so there's a lot of quads that play. There's a lot of spinal cord injuries that play. And then there's like what we call high pointers or function players that make the sport exciting. But those function players can't get on the court unless they got like a 0.5 or a 1 that's paired with them, because our classification goes from 0.5 to 3.5 in 0.5 increments. And then we play 4-on-4, and you can only have 8 points of classification on the court. And so you need those low pointers. You need those high pointers. You need those mid pointers. Everyone has a spot. Everyone has a purpose on the team and on the court. And I think that's what makes the sport really, really unique from a strategic standpoint, cerebral standpoint. And then, of course, the physical nature is 4-on-4. You can smash into each other as hard as you want to. And we're flying around. The game's super fast. It's 50 to 60 goals a game, one point per goal. And we're pushing about 5 to 6 miles start and stop in a game if you're playing an entire game. So it's a lot of cardiovascular strength, endurance, speed endurance out there, because our chairs weigh about 40 pounds.
Damn. I'm going to tell you a quick story about the equipment, which is you'll appreciate. So in Rio, I did a tour of the Autobach repair facility in the athlete village. I did a tour of the whole village another day, but one day I just went there just for the repair center. And first of all, Autobach is a German company, so it's like they're tracking every metric, and I mean it was pretty cool,
it's amazing
to see how they were running that place. And I was asking about sort of demand for services, and they predict all of it out. They know exactly they anticipate who's going to be coming in, and they go, listen, this is the calm before the storm, because tomorrow wheelchair rugby starts. And they said every chair comes in for something after every match. They said we're about to like blow up because wheelchair rugby starts tomorrow, which is, I thought was so funny. But if you watch the sport, you see it's like, oh yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
like, those chairs, I don't know how they survive.
It's insane, and we have to buy like elite level rugby players. I mean, a chair lasts 2, maybe 3 years, because it's just taking so much contact.
And those aren't free chairs.
Those are not cheap.
All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and dig into the soul before we wrap this baby up. But before I do that, what's a fun or interesting fact that I don't know about you?
Fun or interesting fact?
You already got the bottle rocket story out of the way. So
yeah, no kidding. Goodness gracious, what can I sing the national anthem before one of my games in high school.
Really?
It's kind of
Are you a
different.
good singer?
I'm decent. We had a garage band called External Chaos. It's like a 90s
band or
grunge thing.
something?
It was like we'll play whatever you want if you give us money at like graduation parties or summer parties.
Like a cover band kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. So it was fun. So I was a lead singer. We had a drummer and a guitar player. And
all right. When you send in your pictures for the intro, can you send a picture of you singing in the band? Maybe.
Yeah. I probably have one. Yeah. I can do that. Yeah. That's a good time.
I love that.
So national anthem, and I was in a garage band, man. It's good.
Those are good. Are good. I mean, even the theater thing that you dropped earlier, I think was unexpected. When you think about this sort of hulking 6'6" guy that's playing sports.
Yeah.
So what would you say your disability has taught you?
Wow, that's a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with identity. And I think because growing up, like identity wasn't a struggle for me just when I acquired my disability, like we talked in the very beginning.
Yep.
It was kind of a struggle with my ethnicity growing up. And so having that and wrestling through that, I realized like it really taught me that I just own who I am. I'm Joe and I'm in a wheelchair, and I like to share with people how this bad boy is an opportunity throughout my entire life. And it's made me a better husband, a better father. And I've gotten to do the whole sports thing and things like that. But I think it's really taught me about resilience, and it's provided a lot of opportunities to fail, to practice like the choice in that. I just, I don't know.
My next question was going to be, what have you learned from your failures? So you're on it, man. You're like,
man,
script.
No, like failures where that's where the magic happens. It really is. And I think, with my kids, like if I see my son, my oldest is pretty talented at a young age. So instead of making him the best player on the 8-year-old team, I'd rather bump him up and like, let's see how you react when the kids are a little bit tougher than you. Mm-hmm. And I want them to experience that, because like that's where the beautiful thing happens, and you kind of mold your choices into going like, blame game, the permanent victory. You can have permanent victory with the choices that you make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great. You may have already just answered this, but do you have a life philosophy that kind of keeps you grounded, that keeps you heading in the right direction?
Yeah, it's that Bible verse. I have it tattooed on my arm. And
do you really?
I do. Yeah. So like I got a sleeve during COVID, and I'll send you an actual picture of it, but it's like the whole thing, and it's a compass here in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. But the whole thing signifies the path I've been on.
Wow.
And the things that have happened. And that kid in the hospital couldn't imagine any of that happening, and was just like, why, what's the purpose? And that verse on my wall was trust in the Lord and don't lean on your own understanding, because I think I wouldn't have understood the blessings that were going to happen.
Can you say it again? Say it again real slow.
Yeah. So there's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 on my wall in the hospital room. And I'm this 19-year-old kid with all these questions of what life's going to bring with this disability. And it said, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
And lean not on your own.
And lean not on your own understanding.
Got it. Okay.
Because I think that 19-year-old boy would have been like, you're crazy. There's no way that this is going to happen. And I think a lot of times we want to know the outcome, and we want to know what's going to happen. And we might have a 5-year plan, and that bad boy is awesome with like 25. You got the power deck. You got like the best PowerPoint ever with the slides of the 5-year plan. And it just doesn't happen that way. Yeah. But you can hope and have faith in something, and then choose great responses in those failures. And I guess, I don't know, if I can end it like this, I've had this theme of threes in my life that, and I've just recently come across connected the dots, if you will. And I hope that there's more, and maybe it won't be threes, but I think it's just giving me an outlook of going like, trust, just take a step. A lot of us think it's a leap of faith, and it's like, nah, it's just a step. Like just get in the wheelchair and just, you know what, go back to school. And hey, that April girl, yeah, definitely make her your wife. And it's, you know, and so at 13, I was at a youth conference. I thought I was going to be a speaker. That's the first three. And I was like, there's no way. Like, I don't know. Like, I just thought the guy up there was so cool. He was really funny. Like, I don't even remember his name, but I thought, man, that's a really cool job. And I just put it off and didn't think of it. And sports. And I break my neck. July 10th, July 3rd. I got that Bible verse, Proverbs 3. And I'm in the hospital room and I'm thinking like, I don't know if this girl's going to like leave me. I want to have kids someday. Like I wanted to be a dad. My dad wasn't there for 15 years. I ended up reconciling with him. I went to go see him after my accident and we had a beautiful relationship. He passed away in 2016, but
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thanks. But it was one of those things where I always wanted to be a dad, and I have 3 kids. And I thought, man, this sport thing's never going to happen again. Identity's ripped away. And I'm training, you know, for my second Paralympics that I made, but my third Paralympic cycle. And I thought Division II football doesn't get any better than that. You know, of course I want to play Division I, whatever, but I'm thinking like college football is way better than an adaptive sport, but take a step of faith, keep stepping in it. And I got to wear 3 letters across my chest for the last 14 years, USA.
Yeah.
Playing for my country, traveling the world.
Traveling all over the world. Yeah.
Traveling all over the world. At 33 years old, I decided to go full time into speaking. So that's what I paid the bills with, besides, you know, the peanuts I get for being a Paralympian. Yeah.
The 3 peanuts that you get.
Yeah. I got to add that in there. It's only 3 peanuts. Fit it into my theme of threes. But that's the philosophy is a lot of times you're not going to understand it, but you can continue to move forward in that with some hope and faith.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm going to give you the last word here. If there's anything that we haven't covered or you want to say, or someone you forgot to mention, it's all you. And then just let the audience know kind of how to follow your journey, track you down.
Yeah, man, we've covered a lot. I don't know if there's anything else I would have left out. We didn't talk about my dad very much, but that was something that, to tie that in, me reconciling with him. And then I was really close with my grandpa as well. And again, my hero, but it really helped me understand my ethnicity as well. And part of my identity is being a mixed man. And so the Black side of me, and being able to kind of understand that and really own that finally. And that relationship with my dad really helped me out, because we talked a lot about how the way he grew up and what he saw and why it was so important to see a Black president. And I think that really, really helped me. And so forgiveness is the one.
I'm sorry, Joe, it took you 20 years to sort of maybe accept yourself and appreciate the Black side of your history. Does that journey of self-acceptance around your race then translate to improved self-acceptance around the disability? Like, are they related?
Yes. Yeah, I think they are. Because the lesson's kind of the same. And really, they both come up. Like there's still racism in this country.
Yeah.
When we don't have universal access for people with disabilities, it's not there yet. And so issues both come up, and you deal with them. And for me, when I got named to the 2021 team, before we went in to find out who was on the team, I realized if it was a yes or a no, I'm very comfortable with who I am and what my purpose is. And it's not to go and win a sport. It's not to go and play a game. And again, I'm the most competitive person you'll meet, but I realize my value and worth isn't tied to a scoreboard. It's tied to who I am in my other roles in life.
That's powerful. I think that's something we can all take that away.
It's great. Best place to get a hold of you on the web. You have a really nice website. Is that the best place?
Yeah, joedelagrave.com. I'm active on all social media, but I mean, I think Instagram, if you want to slide into my DMs over there at jdelagrave14, you can do that. Yeah.
Will you be providing live updates from Tokyo or what? You got to keep your fans in the loop.
Yes, we will have live updates. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Look forward to it. I'll be there and I will do everything. I don't know how easy it's going to be for me to get into venues, but I'll do everything in my power to come watch you play.
Amazing.
And rooting the team on, including Chuck and the other guys, and just have a great games. And from the bottom of my heart and producer Dave and our team at Angel City Sports, thanks for joining us today. I really loved digging into your story, and just thanks for being so vulnerable and honest and telling us a damn funny story about the bottle rocket.
Of course, man. And thank you for the opportunity, for the platform, and just a big shout out to you as well. It's just amazing to see you as a dad and an advocate for our community, and the love that you show your son, and then all of us. It's pretty awesome. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Wow. Joe is such an impressive voice for our community. Watch Joe and Team USA as they compete for gold in the Tokyo Paralympics. In our next episode, we interview Brianna Salinero, a para taekwondo athlete who is also heading to Tokyo.